Yeah.
I got somebody. I'll give you.
How are you doing? Yes.
He's very great. I'm honest.
Of course. And I will come and talk next year. I'm already good. Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. That sounds good. How are you? I've been praying for you. Glad to see you. Yeah.
Scientists and doctors. No.
I know, I'm sorry.
Hello. Members, I can't keep it.
I'm so glad. But so glad that you're feeling better. And I will always speak to leadership as well. I love you too. You're the best.
Oh,
That you.
well, then we'll always be members.
But I want to
I mean, no, like it just the way.
Members on the floor.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. She's that's meant to, but I think even if she played, she played with
Well, good morning. Good to see you all. And appreciate your being present. We got a long committee meeting. I want to thank Chairman Albritton for canceling his general fund meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So give us extra time because we got a lot to discuss, and I would, we got a lot members next week. We had the school choice bill referred to this committee that we'll need to discuss. We've got the grocery tax legislation that's in this committee. Now, the House bill will probably be the one that needs to pass, but we can certainly discuss it if we have time. So we got other important business that we need to conduct starting again next week. So that being said, I have a few comments I'd like to share with you before we get going today. I hope you'll be able to keep this in mind because you got a lot of, obviously a whole lot on the table for us to consider this morning. I want to thank the staff, the LFO staff, Kirk and Shonda, for all they do. Miss Doyle here beside me, helping a whole lot. My intern, Alex, has been very helpful. And thank you all for your input. I would have to say categorically and without reservation, this has been the most trying budget in my illustrious 12 former years. I guess this is year 13 as serving in this capacity as chairman of a budget. And that would include the 2011 session where we're working on the 2012 general fund budget. That it's all double-digit cuts to many state agencies. As you know, no state budget or no budget is perfect. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of decisions made in that budget. The numbers can be high or low or middle. The categories, the different items in there, all can be moved. Here in Montgomery and I think 48 other states, we have to balance our budgets, as you well know. So sometimes there may be, if you're going to cut something or need to plus something up, you've got to cut from elsewhere. And that creates a whole nother set of problems. And then certainly we've got regional considerations, the levels of K-12, JUCO, higher ed, pre-K, and other areas, other agencies that are funded in the education budget. All those considerations working as we try to make the soup. My number one consideration is trying to get what you all want because this is our budget, your budget, and take your input. Now, does that mean every request gets satisfied? Unfortunately not. Again, there are a lot of things weighing on those decisions, and I tried to guide the process and try to hit a spot where we can get the most agreement. As I said, this budget has been the most challenging. I usually have probably 2 Redwell file folders this size, so double that to this. I have a box this size plus a whole nother Redwell that really ought to be 2 about this thick of requests and things that have come forward, be they from members, the member file is the largest it's ever been. So unprecedented year. The budget that came over from, as I said, there's so many decisions in a budget. I don't agree with everything in a budget, but that's okay. There's just a lot of decision points if I were king, but none of us are. We did receive a budget from across the street, some things that I understood, some things I didn't understand. And I won't delve into that because we'll be suggesting a substitute here shortly. But it was a starting point, and that would be our starting point today as we go forward. I have one thing I want to read for you, and then we'll get rolling on the various bills. This came from the fiscal office. It's dated Monday, May 1st. So it came from Mr. Fulford, and I want you to hear some of these items. So in April, total receipts for the month of April were 780 million, down from 1.16 billion in April of 2022. So month over month, we are down $375 million or 32%. Most of this is attributable to income taxes. The thing that's most telling, and he goes into more detail, year to date, the ETF receipts are 5.18 billion. So that's, starting October 1, not January 1, a slight decline of 39.3 million. So less than 1% decline over fiscal year 22. So we're through, over half of a year. The October, the first quarter, which would be October to December, and then December, March, and then plus April. So 7 months in, we are down year over year in the same period from 2022. So I just want you all to keep that in mind. Now, we're not down a lot. We're down slightly. But if this is the indicator of what we're looking forward to in the months and years perhaps ahead, we just need to be cautious. And I know you all and talk to you all, you members, and then those that don't sit on this committee. And I think that's the spirit of the membership, to be conservative, be concerned, be cautious as we go forward, and make sure we make wise decisions, because we're the stewards of the people's money, and need to make sure the decisions that we make have a long range kind of vision as far as where we're headed. So I just thought that would be relevant. There's no other, anybody got a comment before we get rolling today? All right, y'all spellbound. All right, let's call the first bill,
I'm
please.
gonna call roll.
And she's going to call the roll, and then we probably are going to skip around a little bit. We had add a bill or two before we get into the budget and supplemental. So call the roll.
Senator Albritton? Senator Butler? Senator Chastain? Senator Figures? Senator Gudger? Senator Hatcher? Senator Hovey? Senator Melson? Senator Roberts? Senator Schofield? Senator Sessions? Senator Singleton? Senator Smitherman? Senator Wagner? Senator Allen? Senator Orr?
All right, 15 members present. Call the first bill.
Senate Bill 262 by Senator Beasley.
Senator Beasley, I saw you out there. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is the annual Tuskegee University request for $13,151,435 for operation, support, and maintenance of the university. And if there's
Mr. Chairman.
no questions, I move for a favorable report.
Let me interrupt. Senator, you got a question? Somebody got a question?
No, I was
Okay.
gonna move.
We have a substitute. Every institution saw, and we have to, Tuskegee's not part of the formal budget where they have their own special bill because they are a semi-private, semi-public institution. But every other institution and the governor's recommended budget that we'll get to had an increase except Tuskegee. And so I do have a substitute that has an increase for Tuskegee in line with what the other schools got. And
Move for adoption of the substitute.
would like to offer
I
that.
second it and thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
may I call it the Figures substitute, or you?
Sure.
Okay.
And now-
So Senator Figures has offered a substitute, and put her name at the top. It does raise their appropriation, Senator, and like I said, in line, and Senator Smitherman seconds. Is there any discussion on the Tuskegee bill? All right, clerk, call the roll, please. On the substitute.
Senator Albritton? Senator Butler? Senator Chastain? Senator Figures?
Aye.
Senator Gudger? Senator Hatcher? Senator Hovey? Senator Melson? Senator Roberts? Senator Schofield? Senator Sessions? Senator Singleton? Senator Smitherman? Senator Wagner?
Aye.
Senator Allen? Senator Orr?
Aye.
15.
15 ayes, 0 nays. The substitute's adopted. Is there a motion on the bill?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, Mr. Senator Beasley,
could I just make a comment?
please.
I just want to tell you how much I appreciate for Tuskegee University that an increase in their appropriation, and I'm
Sure.
very, very grateful. Thank you.
When we're proud of them. They got a strong history and certainly make our state proud, and we're proud of the job that they do for our state and for the students. Senator Smitherman?
I'm just moving.
Senator Smitherman moves and. Okay, you got a second?
Sessions.
Okay. Any objection to using the previous roll, which would appear to be unanimous? All right, seeing none. It's 15 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is given favorable report. Thank you, Senator Beasley. Appreciate
Mr.
your carrying
Thank you, Mr.
the
Chairman.
legislation.
Members of the committee, thank you very much.
All right, clerk, call the next bill.
Senate Bill 93 by Senator Hovey.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir,
move favorable report.
okay. Is there a second? Second by Senator Allen. Senator Hovey, the difference in Tuskegee having that quasi role versus the, I keep wanting to think of them as Lyman Ward, but the academy being fully private, we left those level per the governor's recommendation. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any objection to using the previous roll? It was unanimous. All right, 15 ayes, 0 nays. Senate Bill 93 is given a favorable report. Congratulations, Senator Hovey. Glad to have you representing
Senator,
the east part of the state and handling this legislation for the academy. Call the next, let's see, let's move on down to SB 111.
Senate Bill 111 by Senator Bell.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Smitherman.
move favorable report.
Okay, Senator Smitherman, Senator Hatcher, seconds. Any discussion? another all-private institution. Just been supporting them for some time. All right, any objection to use the previous roll, which was unanimous? All right, seeing none, Senator Bell, well done. I tell you, I wish I had that capability that you have. Skipping on, let's go to,
Did you skip SB 86 too, Mr. Chairman? I just missed it.
say that one.
Did you skip SB 86?
Yes, we
Okay.
did not do 86, SB 86. We're going to skip down to SB 85, which is the pay raise. The 2% pay raise is recommended from the governor's office. Senator Smitherman.
So move.
All right, Senator Smooth moves. Senator Hatcher seconds. Any discussion? Senator Sessions?
I'm fully supportive of this, but at some point, I would like to see this committee take a look at our support personnel. And instead of giving a flat increase to all employees, at some point, these lower level employees, our custodial, our bus drivers, I would like to see us look at giving them a flat increase and kind of bumps their bottom. When we do give percent raises, it means a little bit more to them. And I just wanted to make that comment.
No, it's very, very valid, very warranted. And so let me tell you where we are with that. The gentleman behind me, and I think it's the brown coat, we have been working diligently on trying to assess the numbers for K-12 support workers. And they've been beating the bushes between the State Department and other organizations trying to get a bead on what that number is. I'm hoping in the next 24 hours we'll get it, because like you, and I heard from several of you, when it came to support staff, you wanted to see movement. I was going to wait till the budget to discuss it. You can certainly verify the information. There's another one that we are working on. We still don't have good numbers on the budgeted school nurses. Now, we do have it for speech therapists, and there's one other category, and special ed teachers, to have a stipend increase for those educators. But the nurses and the support staff, we're still wrestling for numbers. And I can say that in my conversation with Chairman Garrett, he is supportive of that initiative as well. So that's kind of, but well taken, well said, and we're going to try to do it if we can up here. If not, Chairman Garrett is committed to trying to wrestle with that downstairs if we get that information. This 2% raise, as you know, is across the board. If you recall, last year we changed the salary matrix for classroom teachers, where every year they will get a 1% raise regardless of what the legislature does. So if you're a classroom teacher, you will see a 3% all-in raise as opposed to a 2%. So that's a commitment we made as a legislature. And another reason, you know, it's important for us to make sure we're able to continue to fund some of these growing each year after year after year amounts that we need to continue to fund.
Mr. Chairman, and do we have a matrix that's coming up for support services for public education as well?
Well, we don't have a matrix because the locals pay the support staff, and it's all over the board. And that's our concern. We were trying to raise the floor to, you know, have a minimum, and where the state would help the locals get to a minimum, but trying to find out from all the LEAs out there what they're paying. That's been the challenge here in the last couple of days as we've tried to. Well, it's been even longer than that. Senator Smitherman?
I think that's good that what you and what Senator Sessions are trying to do is that it's kind of like with the millage, and it's almost akin to the millage for our systems. You know, we as a state, because of the foundation reform, I'm not telling you nothing you don't know because you're the chair. We give
There's a lot I don't know.
we give a set amount based on the foundation program. The overage is based on that extra taxes that they put on themselves. And I think that this what he was saying and what you were saying is probably a similar approach. We're just going to have to do what we do over the baseline to raise them up. And then everybody may not be the same. The locals may have to come a little different, but we at least will have people up to a certain baseline. And I think that is good.
That's what we're going to try to do. And then those that are, let's say they're above the baseline today, that they see a raise as well. We don't want to leave them hanging. We want to move the needle for everybody north. And
I just got
and so
one
it's been a challenge, but
just one question.
Stay
in relationship,
tuned.
This is about nurses. It was, I know it was, I don't know if the right word, metrics or whatever was proposed to be considered by the, as what nurses make in our schools and whatnot. Has that been addressed or considered, or where that might be in the mix of everything?
Well, that's what we're working to get that number as well.
Okay.
That's the one that we kind of have a question mark. And, we got to move the budgets on. And like I said, Chairman Garrett is committed to those two items. And so he, just depending on time, and I'm certainly committed on it. We'll get a say, but I think it's important for us to go home and show the support workers how we've worked at that. For community colleges, we were able, and working with the community college system for staff in the community colleges, they're working on that, and they've gotten some additional funds to work on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So,
Mr. Chairman, you asked a question about the community colleges, but also following up about the nurses. As you know, we have a shortage of nurses in Mobile County, and I've talked to you about that. Are you trying to address that as well?
that's what I'm saying. We're waiting on
Not just the pay, but
Mr. Fulford, the support staff and the nurses. We were not able, the speech therapist and the special ed. Thank you, special ed. We were able to address that in the budget, as far as trying to start an increased stipend for those people in the school system.
all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think Senator Smitherman just responded to my question about the matrix. We mentioned nurses, but I think it was also bus drivers and support staff that I was referring to.
Right. That's a local decision. We don't have a statewide salary matrix for support staff. Some, bus driver in one LEA may get paid differently than a similar situated as far as years of service bus driver in another LEA. But we're trying to do something to raise for everyone across the state. And if you're at one level, you'll get a raise. And if you're here, you would get somewhat of a raise too. We're trying to hit them all, in other words, because our cost of living in an urban market is going to be more than a very rural market, but everybody needs certainly help.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Figures.
one last question. When you said that they're paid differently throughout the state with the support personnel, are our teachers paid differently across the state as well? Well, how can we?
Well, if they get a local supplement, I'm sorry.
Okay, but how can we move to a point where we can get all of the support personnel on the same?
That would be
level?
what I'm going to refer to as a salary matrix, like I think it's been mentioned, where we, if you got so many years and you're a bus driver and you're in Bay Minette, you get the same as someone up in
Huntsville or whatever.
Huntsville or wherever.
Okay.
Yeah, and but those decisions are left to the LEAs right now.
But we can pass legislation.
We could. It'd be expensive, but we could.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no more questions, clerk, call the roll on SB 85, please. Or is there any objection to the previous roll? SB 85? All right, seeing no objection, 15 ayes, 0 nays. Bill's given a favorable report. We will move down to Senate Bill 278.
Senate Bill 278 by Senator Wagner.
Senator Wagner.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Smitherman.
move for a report.
All right.
glad to explain it if you want me.
I think everybody at this table know what that is. Everybody at this table knows, so unless they got something to say.
Okay. SB 278 has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, any objection, use the previous roll, which was unanimous. All right, seeing none, SB 278 is given a favorable report.
I was so prepared to speak.
We know you were.
for 15 minutes.
You've been rehearsing since 6 a.m.
Yeah. Then you have to move to give it a favor.
That's called teamwork.
My apologies.
Okay.
Coach Smitherman, Coach Senator Smitherman, he knows how to
I
do
hope it
teamwork.
passes the full Senate that quick. Okay.
I hope so.
All right. We're going to call SB 267.
Senate Bill 267 by Senator Chastain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment that I'd like to pass around. But this bill would create the Athletic Trainers Secondary School Incentive Program that would provide grants that meet certain requirements related to athletic trainers in rural 1A, 2A, 3A, and Title I schools.
Mr. Chairman, I passionately with a smile move for favorable report.
Okay.
I
Well,
understand.
we got an
fully.
amendment.
Okay,
So
I
you'll
understand
move-
fully what he doing, and you need these trainers there. I'm telling these kids get hurt, you need somebody right on the spot that's gonna stabilize them. I mean, you take a bone, if you don't get them there in time, if that bone starts healing crooked and everything else if they break it. So you gotta have the right people there. Even in practice, you really need them.
The amendment removes the appropriation that was in the bill. We're going to work on having an appropriation in the budget. And so we don't need to put that appropriation amount in the code. So that's the reason for the amendment. Okay, so it's been moved by Senator Melson. Wait, Senator Smitherman already moved. Senator Melson seconds. Any objection, use the previous roll on the amendment. Seeing none, 15 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment is adopted. We're on the bill.
If he wants to move his bill, I'll second it.
Senator Senator Chastain and Senator Melson moved in second. Chastain and Melson. Any objection, use the previous roll on the Chastain bill. Seeing none, 15 ayes, 0 nays. The Chastain bill is given a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator. Let's move to Senate Bill 101. We'll talk about that a bit. This is the Rolling Reserve Amendment to amend the Rolling Reserve Act. I've got my notes. I've got it in my head. I'm going to call on Mr. Fulford to explain what we're doing. We're throwing out the high years to bring the cap down. We're putting a ceiling on spending as far as a percentage of revenues. And so we don't wind up in the situation we're in today. We're starting the waterfall effect, and I'll let the gentleman describe how it goes: stabilization, advancement in technology, and the new savings account that we will discuss in the budget. So if there's a key takeaway, this will create a savings account. We don't call it that. It's a sexy name. That the Educational Opportunities Reserve Fund is what I'll refer to as a savings account to save for a rainy day. And then there's some, of course, parameters on that savings account as far as our revenue growth to access that. So, Mr. Fulford, we would like to probably hear from the horse himself on all the details on this Rolling Reserve Amendment.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so bill does several things. Primarily, it defines terms in the Rolling Reserve Act that have not been defined before. I think there was some misunderstanding about how the waterfall did or didn't happen in years where you don't spend to the cap. Understand that that was not a situation. If you did not spend to the cap, there was no waterfall effect. There was no money that trickled into automatically that trickled into the Budget Stabilization Fund or the Advancement in Technology Fund. This bill actually sets it up to where that's going to happen every year, regardless of whether you spend to the cap. It also establishes a secondary spending limit, which is important to you because after the couple of years that we've had where you've got exponential growth in revenues, the starting point to calculate the cap, i.e. the most you can spend, is that big revenue year. So you could possibly have a cap, but just based on the formula, that would have been $11 billion or so for this year, which is so far above where your spending level is right now. You would really have to worry about the economy continuing what it's doing in order to be able to meet that appropriation level. So the secondary spending limit actually puts in place a 6.5% limit on 24 expenditures over the previous year. That's $503 million. It ratchets that down to a rate of 5% increase. And this, again, is the lesser of the two. So if we get back to a situation where the cap is below this 5% limit, it would be the cap again. So this is providing some extra comfort in the unknown world that we're living in as far as what's going to happen with the economy in the next 2 or 3 years. And the biggest thing it's doing is setting up the waterfall effect going forward. So the waterfall effect, and what that means is any year when you have revenues exceeding whichever number you use, that difference and why you've got a supplemental appropriation bill that's got $2.7 billion in it is it didn't have a home in years when you didn't appropriate to the cap. This is actually providing a home, and it's the same homes that would have happened had you spent to the cap, except we've added another reserve fund. And why you added another reserve fund is simply because you didn't have a liquid reserve fund that you could access for a drop off in the economy. The only reason you could access the budget stabilization fund is if the appropriations or revenues to the education budget went negative and actually caused proration. That didn't allow you any flexibility to access the money in the event that you had a slowdown as opposed to an absolute drop off. So this is providing you that flexibility, as well as you could access it for some other priority matters in terms of unexpected expenditures and some future needs. And we've increased the amount that's going into the stabilization fund to up to 10% of the previous year's appropriations. Right now it's capped at 7.5%, and you've actually topped it out. I stated in my presentation back in March that number would not have offset or fully offset a proration situation like you had during the Great Recession. So the need to increase that amount to match up with the ongoing economy was certainly something that was everybody agreed was the right thing to do. And that's it. It's kind of laid out there. There's a lot of blue language in the copy that you've got, simply because we added a whole nother provision that kicks into place beginning in fiscal year 2024 that takes the place of everything that happens up until that point. So basically repeat of a lot of language, and that's why there's a lot of blue language in the bill, but it's not a heck of a lot of changes all around.
All right, we do have an amendment that I've been handed. Are you familiar with that, Mr. Fulford?
I am familiar.
Okay, what is that? One page.
It was addressing some concerns that the school superintendents had about the allowable uses of the Educational Opportunities Fund when it got to the point of being able
to make sure it stays with educational
make sure
concerns.
That there was no cutting of the educational component that was already in place. The language was a little ticky in there, and so that's cleaning it up to where it's addressing the concern that they had.
Okay. Senator Smitherman. We had a question, Senator Smitherman.
Would you explain a little more in detail? I mean, I know you have explained it, but I don't know what it is that they are worried about happening by having this amendment.
I don't have they were concerned that what would happen is the language in there previously said you could not supplant existing revenue sources.
What that mean?
And take this money and replace that money. In other words, if there was a project or something that had been funded in the previous year's education budget and then the economy went negative, they were concerned that you could not maintain that level of spending with the language that was in there to start with. And so this language basically clears it up that you can maintain what's already going on. It's just limiting it to where you can use the money to expand a program that hadn't been established prior to something slowing down or you actually appropriating the money.
Well, just allow them to shift from operating, that money they're using for operating over to a building or something?
No, sir. The actual the Advancement in Technology Fund, which has a current balance of about $750 million in it, can be used for capital expenditures. And with this waterfall effect, there will be some money rolling over on top of that 750 at the end of the year. And if you come back next year and decide that you want to, you could absolutely appropriate any or all of that money and use it for a capital project. So this money in this new reserve fund cannot be used for deferred maintenance or capital expenditures simply because you've already got a fund established that can handle that.
Can the money be drawn out of that to add to that after we pass the budget or something?
No, because it has to be in a separate supplemental appropriation. I mean, obviously, if you decide that you want to do something to change how the wording is or what you can use the money for, then you could do that. Obviously, though, if you've accessed this fund, something bad has gone on in the economy because we've had a slowdown. That's one of the triggers. We have to have a slowdown that necessitates some sort of cut or reduction in current spending levels. And then at that point, you could access the fund to appropriate to the K-12 and higher ed entities.
If we have the last question, Mr. Chairman, if we have some serious emergency, i.e. COVID, it's bam, it just hit, how difficult would it be for us to be able to get this money to use, I'm talking about for raw education, because, COVID required the Zooming and required all these extra expensive things so how readily could we get our hand on this new money, this new count we setting up?
A COVID situation would have been a unexpected expenditure of funds. In other words, you had to spend money for this, that, and the other. You could access the money for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
So we had a motion by Senator Roberts on the amendment. Is there a second? Senator Hovey seconds. Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, seeing none. Any objection to the previous roll? 15 ayes, 0 nays. The amendment's adopted. We're on the bill, and I would say, at the beginning of this session, I recall the pro tem saying something along the lines of the objective when it came to money in this particular session was we were going to save some, we were going to invest some. We're going to look at tax cuts, and there's been a lot of conversation. I think everyone around this table is a co-sponsor of the grocery tax reduction. And then we're going to look at rebates, which we'll consider next. So this is the savings component. You'll see our level of investment when we get to the supplemental, and we'll talk about putting money into this account. And again, I think we're setting ourselves, putting ourselves in a good position because we have taken on some endeavors that are going to require ever increasing financial commitment. Among those, the Literacy Act, the Numeracy Act, the salary matrix that we've already discussed, those kind of things that continue to grow year after year after year are certainly important. And so that's the reason we're taking this step to put the framework in place. All right, been moved by Senator Schofield, seconded by Senator Hatcher. Any objection to the previous roll? Seeing none. 15 ayes, 0 nays. The bill's given a favorable report. Next, we have SB 86, if you'll call that bill, please.
Senate Bill 86 by Senator Orr.
Okay, there's a substitute for this bill. You already have this. This is the rebate bill that was recommended to us. The original number was 900 plus million. That actual number we got word after the bill was filed to do the $400 rebate per person. Was let's see, for a $400 person was well over $1 billion. I think $30 million, somewhere in that range. it went up. And then this substitute brings the overall amount down to $275 million, which would be a little over $100 per filer. So that's the substitute submitted. Senator Roberts moves to adopt the substitute. Is there a second? Second by Senator Sessions. Any discussion on the substitute? Any objection to the previous roll? Senator Singleton, you want to add to the roll? All right, 16 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is given a favorable, substitute is adopted. We're on the bill. Is there a motion?
Mr.
Let me
Can
get a motion in a second. I'll come right to you. Senator Melson moves, Senator Sessions second, Senator Figures.
I just wanted, can you explain exactly how this rebate is going to work and who exactly will be getting it? Because I've been getting calls. There's so much information out there or misinformation. So.
My understanding, if the bill passes, then I don't know that we put an amount in here for a check in the mail. I think it'd probably be a direct deposit to, it is a check, I'm told. So it's written to have a check go to each filer.
So only people who actually file their income taxes will receive this rebate.
That's correct. That's my understanding, and that is as
that
it
was
came
a complaint
from
I was getting from people saying
that's my understanding as it came across. We kept that language the same, just the dollars have changed.
Mr. Chairman,
to create the savings account. Senator Roberts.
Do we have a cost of a direct deposit versus mailing a check?
My recollection was it was $5 million.
Oh my God.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Smitherman.
If he's through.
Thank you.
Okay.
Got an answer.
I want to say again, no reflection on actually what was said or who was said it, but I want us to not lose contact that everybody ain't at the level of technology. Everything we want to put online, that's it. Folks ain't even got internet in the communities. Some of them ain't even got a computer, but they ain't even got internet. How we gonna keep doing? And that's the same way even with this. I know direct deposit is good. Some folks ain't got no checking accounts. They ain't got the folks that I know. They ain't got checking accounts. They live strictly by some little debit card or something like that. So we can't, I just don't want us to keep going in that direction by not doing both. I have no problems with, it shouldn't be either or, but anytime somebody coming in talking about online, leave the manual stuff in place or leave a notice. If ain't nothing but that put on the bulletin board at the courthouse that something happened, they go to the bulletin board. But they have another mechanism of communication other than that. And that's the only reason I mention it, because when he mentioned direct deposit, which I have no problem with, but I know folks who ain't got a checking account or nothing else like that. And so they file taxes. They would not be able to get this. So I just wanted to just say that.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with my good friend from Jefferson County on that. As I read this, we are doing a check per the bill. I would love to see wording done before we get to the floor that if they currently have a checking account that allows for direct deposit, and that's what we've been doing, that we do that. And if not, then we mail a check would be my preference. Anywhere we can save money in the delivery of this,
I'm fine. I filed originally the bill that came from across the street. And,
understand, sir.
So if we want to pursue that, I'm, not going to upset me. Senator Figures.
Thank you.
I agree with my colleagues as well. I wish we could do both, because since it is only for filers, then the Department of Revenue should already have on file each person's account, whether or not they get electronic, whether or not they do electronic or paper, because I definitely prefer electronic. So,
okay.
Thank you.
Well, good comments all, and we can certainly since 275 million, and it's a little over $100 a person. Okay, 100, over $100 per person. All right, we got the bill before us as amended or substituted. Is there any objection to use the previous roll? Moved and seconded. 16 ayes, 0 nays. The bill's given a favorable report. Let's go to the budget and pass out sheets. That would be SB 88. So I think everybody has a copy of the spreadsheet and budget. It's coming around. So maybe you don't. They're working both ways. So what you won't find a lot of changes in this budget. There are not a whole lot of changes. If you look at that far right column, those are, yes, sir. And those are the recommended changes, and you will go some pages and you may just have one change or no changes on the various pages, but we'll do what we always do, and we will walk through the changes that are before you in that far right column. Give you a chance to review it right quickly. All right, let's roll through the spreadsheet. Page 1. Coming down the line there, you see archives, council on the arts, 2 small increases. Community college system down there at the bottom of the page, that 2 million number is a roll-up number. You see the step increases. That's where there was that cap on community college employees that when they were there 30 years, they didn't get any more step raises. So this will address that for long-term community college employees there at the bottom of page 1 on the bottom right. Coming on down to the page 2, you've got the chancellor's office. There at the top of bottom of page 2, top of page 3. Actually, a reduction year over year of that amount. Line 88, you have the STEAM pilot project where they work with high schoolers in the STEAM aspects of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Coming on down, a statewide program with the 98, the cyber school that we put in their law to provide cyber education across the state. I know they've been in several areas. I know Bullitt County comes to mind, and a couple other counties, they've had classes and camps across the state. The next item, dental scholarships. The largest change, turning the page to page 4, the largest change is under the broadband grant program, line 114. We spent or have authorized to be spent in ARPA funds over $500 million to broadband. And this is the one, like I said, the major change based on our investments with our federal funds that this state committed to push broadband across the state. So that is the largest change in the budget. You'll recall in the ARPA funds, there was a $99 million, let's call it $100 million cost to PHIP for COVID-related expenses, and in that ARPA bill, we only paid $40 million. So there was $60 million left outstanding that you'll see, it's $59 million plus, in the supplemental that we're having to pay, education's paying for its PHIP expenses, and we fully loaded the broadband component, et cetera, in the ARPA legislation. So moving on down, got the foundation program. You see the special ed. You see at risk going up there on line 120. Then the nurses, special ed teachers going up. The ALETs and information tech. We're still waiting on that nurse number that we discussed earlier, which would be line 126. So that would change. We talked about that. We're still waiting on number. Senator Smitherman.
And the reason I'm asking because I only get out this section, because I think it's somewhere in here. I was trying to look. What can you go to when you get to it? Without having you bouncing around everywhere. When you get to pre-K and when you get to K,
okay,
I want to see what we had and what we have budgeted now in those two areas.
Okay. This substitute, we didn't do much changing, and now the governor had some plus ups and things that they did, and we affirmed all those. We didn't take it backwards.
But we didn't substantially increase that or anything.
No,
and
it's been increased, and there's some money in the, I believe there's some money in the supplemental for high needs areas for pre-K.
I want to just quickly say why I asked that.
Okay.
Because I was just we were just in a committee meeting. Mr. Chairman is sitting there prior to this meeting. And we were not able to get to a bill because we had the public hearing. But there's a bill in there. And when I get on the floor, I might have an amendment if the bill ever get there, because I'm going to name it. Flunk the Children Twice Bill. Everybody got quiet because they see what that means. We're saying that we're not increasing substantially, and I'm not criticizing us in here, but I'm just stating facts for what they are. We're not substantially increasing pre-K and K, and yet we're telling in that bill that everybody in the state who has somebody who is pre-K must put them in pre-K. Must. And if you don't put them in pre-K, then they cannot go in the first grade unless they pass a test saying they're ready for first grade. And how in the they're gonna be ready for first grade and they can't even get into pre-K. It's flunk the children bill. That's all it is. A way of flunking children to have a pipeline to prison. I ain't saying that was the goal, but I'm telling you what's going to happen. That's flunking children, and then the next pipeline, they're going to be sent straight to prison. That's number one. Number two is that we don't even, the bill says if it's, and I stand corrected on exact words from Mr. Chairman, but it says that to the effect, if it's available, they have to go. But we ain't saying nothing about it. If it ain't available, you ain't got to take the test. You don't have to worry about being held back. See, that's we're setting these children up to go to prison. That's exactly what this is. We already got literacy in the 3rd grade, right? Yeah, I'm right. And if they don't pass the reading, they flunk. Now we finna flunk them in kindergarten or at the 1st grade level, holding them back. Now when they get to 3rd grade, we finna flunk them again. Anybody sitting in here in their right mind think that a child is going to sit up in a classroom in the 12th grade at age 20 and go stay in school and graduate at 20, then you've lost contact of reality. Because that ain't finna happen. So what's going to happen to them? They're going to drop out because we don't put them out. We don't held them back. But then we're going to say our standards, you got to have a certain criteria to get a job. They're not going to get a job. What they tell you? They headed a pipeline to prison. So I had to put that out there because that bill does not need to be going anywhere where we flunking the kindergarten children, holding them back, and because parents don't have resources like we do. I keep saying that. That's why I said that about the internet contacting versus when I gave y'all that example about people don't have internet and all that. Everybody ain't like us, y'all. They don't have what we have around this table. And all I'm saying is that is a vast majority, a large number of our people in this state across all kind of lines. It ain't got nothing to do with no certain kind of people. It's everybody. And I want us to be thinking that before you zap and tell somebody they got to do here, you got to give them the tools to do it. Otherwise, if you don't, we setting them up to fail. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I misspoke, Senator Smitherman. Early ed is 1 page back, and you see about an $8 million increase, roughly 5%, give or take, on pre-K.
On that
early ed.
On that present situation we now, that would seem like a very nice little increase. But under this bill we talking about, that ain't nothing but a drop in the bucket. Thank you, though.
All right. Moving along, we're at the State Department. We moved past that. I'm on page 5. We had a couple bills. One I have not filed, and this is on me, line 180, trying to help principals create a pipeline for principals to improve their training and preparation. And that'll be forthcoming. Then we passed that bill about the class, that we promised to have a grant program for the classroom cameras for special needs children. That's that amount there. Then coming on to the next page, high hopes for Alabama students, line 220. The coaches, football and baseball, the trainers, that's the Chastain bill, line 224 that we just discussed and approved in this committee. 227, helping families, is the helping with kids that aren't in school, help them get in school. Mr. Tyson's program, that's helping families. That is line 227. They work with the local district attorneys to get children to get back in school if they're truant, and they'll send the mom and dad a letter and say, Johnny has missed school for 2 weeks. Where's Johnny? your job as a parent to get them in school and make sure they're there, and they don't go arresting people or something, but they kind of soft love trying to get people, move them back into class and into school, particularly high schoolers.
Do they help them where they may need uniforms? If there's a school that requires uniforms, where they
I
go
don't
to
think
that
so. I
extent?
think this is more truancy based, trying to get truants back into school.
Okay.
And working with the parents. And I'm sure Mr. Tyson would love to come visit with you and tell you about his program. Very proud of it. He does a good job. And it's getting across the state, a lot of different circuits, working again, like I said, through the DA's offices to. How many counties? Ooh. He's got a map, Senator, with a lot of different circuits on it, and this funding goes to the local DA, and the local DA hires I won't call him a truant officer. I'm sure there's a better name, but somebody to work with the families.
I was just gonna say that I guess these funds must come to our DA. Doesn't have to, but it must, because our DA has already set up something like this. He has a committee, and the reason I asked it, I mean, they'll go so far as if a person that have uniforms, they'll try to help them get some uniforms, so that won't be an excuse why they won't go back to school.
All right, moving along. I'm on page 7. You got a couple small Liberty Learning, HEAL, and the 3 botanical gardens, Mobile, Birmingham, Huntsville.
What number is that?
That's where they have educated 241. Small increases down, bottom of the page. Then the next page, tick-borne illness, that was an oversight. I'm on line 278, page 8. That's no new money. It's just the earmark got taken out, that commission. Turning the page, we've got the battleship on line 315, the computer forensics in Shelby County, the RC&D programs, the historical commission with the grant program that they've been running for some time, that members seem to be very pleased with. Turning the page, page 10, public libraries, mental health, the mental health department. Some larger increases there for the providers for intellectual disabilities and mental illness and substance abuse. So trying to help with the mental health department there, the needs that they have. I'm sure you've been made aware of those mental health needs in your area. Of course, this is also in the general fund, but trying to help bring some relief. Turning the page to physical fitness, the Sports Hall of Fame and Festival. Rehab services had some programs where they could get 6-to-1 federal match on rehab services, starting at line 398. They were advocating for space science, and then that is the total there.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Figures.
I wanted to ask you about the Alabama School of Mathematics and Science. At what point or how do we ascertain funds for maintenance of these schools? And they've never really gotten money to go towards that. And it's also a need for a new dormitory there. So will there be something put in place, I don't know, a bond issue or something that would help with these capital needs? Or, and I'm sure they're not the only one in the state, but I know they are in dire need.
We put money, we increased the governor's amount in the supplemental for the 3 schools. They probably could all use more. I know Birmingham, that school wants more, and
I know we need at least 25 million. I don't know how much you put in there.
not 25 million.
I'm smiling, but I'm very serious.
I know you are. And you've been a strong advocate. All right, dropping on down to higher ed, a few increases here. There's a line 466, primary care physician residency program. That's to get residences out there. You'll see that at UAB and USA to get, and that's for rural doctors to do a residency program out in the rural areas. And the understanding is that if they do a residency in a rural area, it is more likely than not they will, and this is on primary care doctors only, decide to reside in that rural area and become a doctor where they did their residency. So that's the recommendation there. Flipping the page, we have a at Auburn, there's an irrigation research and outreach center. That's a program that's actually it was started at UAH, but it's now migrating to Auburn. South Alabama, you see the other half of the primary care physician residency program. Troy, a program, the Free Enterprise Scholars Program. Then you come on down. The governor, of course, gave lots of, see the increases the governor gave to each of these higher ed institutions. You see Tuskegee, the $500,000 that we raised Tuskegee in its budget, and that is pretty much it on the budget. Senator Singleton.
In the government for a school of health sciences, and I see that it's not in this budget anywhere. So can you explain to me that one of the only projects for West Alabama has been totally taken out or not even mentioned in this budget?
Okay, that was in the supplemental and not in the budget. So it hadn't been taken out of the budget. The understanding is, and you'll see it in the supplemental, to do a study on the possibilities for success for having a school for healthcare.
So you will
sciences.
put money for the feasibility study?
There is money in the supplemental for a feasibility study to be conducted by the examiner's office. They'll get a consultant from out of state and come see, can we do this? Okay, where? And then for rural, primarily rural Alabama.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know you and I talked about that, and we were willing to work with you on that piece. I just didn't see it anywhere, and I see where these other centers are being set up in collaboration in the supplemental, along with these 2-year colleges.
Oh, in the supplemental, but we hadn't gotten to the supplemental yet. Okay. Yes.
That wasn't a substitute.
No, but it is because of the synergy, and I think it helps Demopolis. It should be mentioned in there that we want the first location for the 2-year system to start working with the dual enrollment in Demopolis because of the synergies that have already been identified there.
Okay.
And that should be in the language.
I see it in the language.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we didn't.
No, you should see somewhere in the supplemental money for that study.
Okay.
To get some consultant, I don't know who does that, but
I know I'm getting ahead
we'll
of you,
get
but
them.
I just
All
didn't.
right, anything on the budget, Senator Albrecht?
We're on this is the substitute, correct?
Yes.
I'd move for adoption of the substitute.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have one.
Senator Butler, question?
Just one question. I see in here you have on turnaround schools, you have about $10 million in that program. What turnaround school? I think it's like one.
That's probably in the
No, this is in the budget.
Governor. Yeah, we didn't touch it.
Okay.
What page? Yeah, we left that alone. That stayed the same.
That's what the governor recommended, 10 million.
Didn't plus up, didn't plus down. How about that plus down?
I would like to plus up.
Line 175, Senator Singleton. Okay, you said it's underperforming school. I'm sorry. We get
Underperforming schools.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I was looking to see.
Senator Hatcher.
Thank you. I was looking to see the governor's, proposed budget for HBCU.
Right, there should be a $5 million that we had last year for the.
I think the
under eight.
Did the language exclude 2-year colleges? Because it's specific.
It should not. Last year when we had the HBCUs maintenance and whatever program, I know that Drake and Lawson, I think Lawson participated. Drake did not, and that was a problem there. They didn't apply. They didn't understand. The president there called me and didn't realize that they should have participated, but they could have. And
so it includes, does it include 2 years?
Allowed for 2 years and 4 years.
Okay.
He's going to check the language for us. Okay. But we didn't change it, but I know, Senator, they were eligible last year, 2 years were.
Okay.
And if the governors left it the same, okay, I'm told it does exclude 2 years, so that may be something we'll put in.
Yes.
Okay, so we will make that change, and I'll ask Mr. Fulford in front of God and country to make sure we make that change. Include traditionally HBCU 2-year colleges in with the 4 years.
Right. And the other question. The other
Let
question
me
was,
finish with Senator Hatcher.
Where is it? The U.S. I saw U.S. History Commission. Those funds are parked
at the American Village under 8. Department of Ed on line 252.
252?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And lastly, the mental health piece, I think you mentioned.
Yeah, we had
operation. Did I hear you say correctly that there's also some consideration, Senator Chairman Albritton in general fund as well for mental health?
Yes, sir. Mental health is part of the general fund there.
And I'm saying that because I do recognize these figures to a large extent could be judged to be somewhat conservative because we have an onslaught of mental health issues and concerns, not only with adults, but adolescents have been on the rise as well. So just want to mention that. Thank you.
Senator Smith.
Just a quick one. It just, as we go forward, not this budget, I'm not even trying to do that, but as we look at next year and as you start to pre things, I would appreciate with the knowing addition of these junior colleges, this HBCU fund, that we would possibly enhance that fund a little bit because more hands are going to be in it now. Not that they couldn't have been in it, but they just didn't get in it. You know, once they get there, there'll be less funds for each person.
I think Mr. Purcell did from my understanding, every applicant was helped.
Okay, good.
Except, like I said, the only one I know of that didn't apply, they didn't get was Drake State, and but I think he did a pretty good job of helping. As we have the capacity, certainly willing to do that, and you'll see in the supplemental, our 2 4-year HBCUs got additional help in the supplemental.
Good.
With needs that they had that others.
But they got.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay. Any other, Senator Singleton?
I see we have in here on line 316 where you have the HBCU consortium. I don't know if that still exists, but there's a great organization called HBCU Cares that doing some awesome work out there that I would love to see that turn instead of the consortium into HBCU Cares. Maybe I'll entertain an amendment.
I asked the question and I was told, well, they're the same, and I'm sorry.
They're not the same.
Okay.
Right.
So, okay. So we'll make that note. So I met with the CARES people, and when I asked, I said, what about them? I was told it was the same. So
It's not the same, but the consortium doesn't exist anymore.
Gotcha. So we'll make that note for the floor.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Senator Singh, remembering that.
I just need clarification that the 4-year HBCUs did get an increase, correct?
In this budget?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay, but the 2-year HBCUs did not. And I got an email from one of my presidents. So how do
that's in the chancellor's, that's the 2-year college board makes that decision. But they got the 2-year college system gets a substantial increase in.
But is it designated for those HBCUs to get theirs? Because I guess you got the 4-year HBCUs, but they were given theirs directly, right? You didn't give it to the higher ed or
no, they get an individual appropriation, and then the 2-year college appropriation goes to the board or the chancellor and the board, and they make that decision how that money's divided among the 24, I think, colleges.
Okay.
But they will make sure on the floor the 4 that come to mind, HBCU, 5 that come to mind, HBCU junior colleges are able to participate in the line item for the capital improvements under AIC. Yes, sir.
On going back to K-12, I don't see anything here that's hitting on support workers. Why aren't we looking at support?
You missed a
I did.
spellbinding conversation on that the committee's already had several bills earlier. We're working on it. We don't have numbers, reliable numbers. We have a question mark right now. And Mr. Fulford can bring you into, there's that and school nurses that are still outstanding that we got. We did something for speech therapist and always forget it. What's special ed? Thank you. So we're working on the other 2. We got 2 out of 4. We got a ways to go. All right. Seeing no other questions, we got the substitute before us. It's been moved and seconded. Any objection to use the previous roll? All right. Seeing none. 16 ayes, 0 nays. The substitute is adopted. Is there a motion on the bill? Senator Sessions, Senator Hatcher. Any discussion? Seeing none. Any objection to the previous roll? Seeing none. We'll move 16 ayes, 0 nays. The budget is approved, gets favorable report. Thank you, members. Let's move to the supplemental, and that'll leave one more bill after the supplemental that we'll need to bring up that is impacted by the supplemental. So they're going to bring a copy of the supplemental around. And we'll walk through this. Okay, has everybody got a copy? Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. So
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thanks for the blessing.
All right, now does everybody have a copy? Okay. Let's go through it. Section and paragraph. You have the total amount there in section 1. Then little 1, we have the rebate that we have approved in committee that is coming forth. So that's the new amount. Next, we have debt service that was in the governor's amount, governor's recommended. The risk management. I'm on line 31.
Will there be a spreadsheet on this?
I don't have one. We got the bill. We can get you. Yeah, we can get you a spreadsheet. Okay. Next, we're in the Board of Ed there. We've got the salary matrix. We had a problem in this current year budget. When we did the salary matrix, we underestimated. The governor sought to correct that. And so you see that there. That's that 23 million. Then you have the fleet renewal, helping with the buses for the fleet. The 20 million, I'm on line 40, 2460, that is to pre-fund. You know, the teachers, they get in the they'll get in the 24 budget their classroom needs, their money for classroom needs. This pre-funds that. In other words, when they roll in July, August to start school, when they're getting their materials and things like this will front that money so they don't have to wait till October to get funding for classroom needs, and half the semester is over. So that's what that $20 million is for on line 40. Coming on down, State Department of Ed, you see the 360 million on line 45. That is, we passed the PSCA bond bill back in 2020, and the capital projects and expenditures went up for those who weren't ready to go right then. And so this could help offset those cost increases. Coming on down, you'll see on line 4.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just want to reiterate that $360 million, that's to cover for the cost overruns for the bonds that we're trying to get constructed, correct? Right. So we don't wind up with a half built or 3/4 built.
Correct. It'll help them. We had $1.25 billion on that original issue. This is well over, about a fourth of that. And
thank you. Just want to make sure we had that clarification.
So coming on down, folks, line 49, you'll see used allowed with advancement in technology fund. So a lot of your superintendents are concerned about, hey, Mr. Legislator, we use that advancement in technology fund to pay for my SROs. Now, they're supposed to be using it for capital and capital expenses, but they are allowed to use it for security. And somehow SROs are that recurring expense, even not very capital, but that's how it's being used. This allows them to use that pot of money as it'll be divided PSCA formula, but then the use is not restricted to brick and mortar. The use is advancement in technology definition. So they've got a lot more flexibility in how they can use the money. If they want to build something or add to it, that's fine. They want to do the SROs or buy computers or whatever, that's fine too. So a lot larger definition on the usage for your members, for your superintendents as they come to you. So they'll have this flexibility.
I just want you to know that our superintendents have 4 Ms. legislators.
Okay.
They're not just Mr. legislators down there.
Moving on along, thank you, Senator. You got the charter schools was in the governor's college and career readiness, in the governor's summer school math camps, in the governor's school safety grants. I'm on 57, line 57. That number has gone up from 10 million to 40 million. And I think every legislator, male and female, all the above, the school safety has been something you all have told me you're concerned about and want to do. So we have quadrupled the original recommendation for school safety grants to the 40 million.
Does this, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, would this also include the special education classes? Remember the bill that came through for the cameras in?
Well, we had, I don't know if it would qualify for cameras and special. We did have that line item for
that's
500.
safety too. So
I'll leave that up to the discretion of the superintendents. But if we need to expand it, I'm fine. I get it. You're right. No, well, that's a good thought. I hadn't thought of it. I'm thinking of bad guys.
We didn't know how we were going to
coming through the school and wanting to make mayhem in the schools. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Coming on junior achievement, very impressive there in Birmingham. The American Village there at Independence Hall, finishing that impressive thing by 2026, and they'll have a whole Independence Hall constructed there. Holocaust Commission, Sabin Center, turning the page. Firefighters College, I'm on line 90. PHIP, here's that $60 million that I mentioned. PHIP, we're having to pay for COVID expenses. I'm on line 90.
Bless you.
Next, we had some under commerce, the Earth program. This was in the governor's recommended, the Lauderdale Hydroelectric Training Center, the AIDT Electric Vehicle Training Center, the Challenger Learning Center, the coming down to line 107, the Alabama Site Development Fund. This had in the governor, this is the SEEDS bill, and the governor had in that recommendation $10 million. We've quadrupled that to, I'm on line 107, quadrupled that to allow for economic sites to be helped around the state, given Secretary Canfield certainly more assistance to identify and bring those sites along. Turning the page, we've got on 113 the Agriculture Center for Innovation. You got Hudson Alpha. You've got the cystic fibrosis at Southern Research, very impressive plans that they have for a large building to focus on research for cystic fibrosis. You've got a COVID study. Under the innovation, you've got an outdoor recreation component. This came from the governor's office. And part of that, an earmark to study a statewide trails program to interconnect all the trails around the state. That Jack State actually has a trails, major or a lot of classes in trails construction, and they're kind of the guru on trails in the state, I learned. So that's that. Here's the School of Math and Science, center figures, line 133, 6 million, fine arts, same.
Yes, sir. And I have a question regarding those two.
Okay.
Tell me if I'm reading this wrong, but it says that the school, and this goes for the fine arts school as well as math and science, the school shall be ineligible for inflationary increases from the Department of Education pursuant to section.
Let me explain. So the three specialty schools have that prohibition, and the reason is they're getting their money here as opposed to back in the other pot with everyone else, and there was just a concern about double dipping and looking like.
But how is it double dipping if we're talking about inflationary costs and then the other schools get to take that into consideration?
I think they come out better with this than it being in the other.
No, we want to, I'm sure Senator Smith wants to keep them here with fine arts. Well, let me just speak for math and science. We want the 6 million. However, if you get bids and it's 6 million and due to inflation, that cost goes up to 7 million, then we'd like to go to this other pot to get that increase the way they are in the public school system as well for the other schools.
Okay.
Is that not fair?
Well,
because those are our schools too.
I know, but they're not getting a special earmark in the supplemental like the 3 specialty schools are. But we can talk about it. Again, this is a...
Okay, so if you look at it as both of them getting money, but the subject matter is about inflationary costs when they go to do the capital, and we can talk about it later.
Okay, and please do, and a big door is open. Coming on down line 149, this is AIC, talent retention, 100,000, National Guard scholarships, they have a short time, they have a shortfall. The battleship here on line 152, outcome-based funding, something that we'll have together for a pot of money, the Southern Museum of Flight on 155. Early childhood, this was that need, I think Senator Singleton maybe brought up, or Senator Smitherman, about places where we have waiting lists and demand. This came from the governor's office. Next, we have rehab services. I believe that was in the governor's rec. Then we get into higher ed, the universities. Most all of these are the same as the governor's recommended amounts. And then we have another area. I'm on line 253. As I said earlier, the 2 HBCUs got an increase in the 4 years. On line 253, we got the community college system. And one thing I heard from members, how do I get funds out to my area? How do I get, out to throughout the state? We've got our 4 years, and was in those two or three previous pages. How do we break it down even more? And so we put together, there were a lot of requests from members for various needs in their community colleges in their areas. Sometimes it was satellite campuses, things like that around the state. So this money will go to the community college system, and you see $100 million there for the prison construction for the education component in the new prison. It'll be nice. I think that came from the governor's office as participating in that, since it'll be used by Ingram State. But then pushing money out through the community colleges, you see these various and sundry amounts for the various colleges that working with the 2-year office to what projects are they, which ones are viable, where the needs are. Then you roll on to page line 336, page 12, and then the top of 337, working with the community college system. There seems to be in the legislature a real desire for healthcare workers, meaning LPNs and others, to put them into the workforce across the state, particularly in rural areas. So what's been developed is a plan with the $35 million that you see appropriated, where this would be pushed out across the state among the community colleges, among these counties in the college service areas where dual enrollment will be pushed, and even facilities either at a school or at the community college, if they're, close to the ground, that will be worked into to begin a pipeline of young people in high school that would come on up through high school, have some preparation, and then matriculate into the local community college, and then possibly even 4-year after this. But this is a plan that was brought forward to us. Sound very good to Chairman Garrett and myself, and trying to put together this network to create more healthcare workers across the state, but particularly in rural areas, as we did with the residency program. So that's a mouthful, and I apologize for being long-winded. All right, the next thing, let's move on. 383, the Marine Lab, the space science. Then we come to line 391. All right, so we'll focus your attention on that. Another thing I heard from members, and we'll get to this, how do I help schools, K-12 schools? Now we've addressed 4 years. We've addressed 2 years. How do I get funds to my K-12 schools? And you all can imagine the difficulty of trying to, we're going to do the gym at the East Fork High School and a cafeteria at the Little Creek Elementary School, the middle school. I mean, we would have pages and pages. So how do we address that? One thought is we establish a fund that would allow for grants to be provided that would be, I'm going to say, projects from couple $100,000 to $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, somewhere in that range, maybe more, that members can, with their local LEAs, the superintendents, apply and hopefully get some help and relief for their area. May not be enough to build a building, but it can certainly add a classroom or make some improvements that are in excess of the community service grant money that we get, which we also have, we'll talk about that next. So that's what this level of funding is.
Mr. Chairman.
The Lieutenant Governor's office would handle this grant process, and that's the reason for the last bill that we'll be discussing today. Senator Figures.
This is the first time something like this has been done. And I just want to know that it's going to be totally fair to every child in the state, regardless of party affiliation of their legislators. So I'd like to know if there is already a policy set up as to how this is going to be done so that it is fair. Or do you divide it proportionately per capita with the child and that money would be designated in the event that those legislators for that particular area want to apply for a grant? And if at a certain point they don't make that application and they don't spend that money, then it could go somewhere else. But I just want to be guaranteed that we're all going to have equal access. And in terms of it being approved or not approved, what comes into play with that? Is there any criteria set up?
Well, the bill that we'll be discussing here next is a starting point. And, I would invite it was prepared by the LFO staffers and certainly open to further conversation on it. First, like you said, it's the first time we've done it, but how do we have a program where we, along with the superintendents, they're the ones that are going to bring us the needs of things that they have, and that'll fill this bucket or fill this need, and then we can take it from there and work. But I'm assured in my conversations with the Lieutenant Governor that they would be fair and transparent. That's all I would ask for.
Well, I mean, this concern would be for, it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican in any, we're getting ready to put this into law. So I just want to be assured that it's going to be fair. And I think the best way to do it is to divide it up per capita for each system. And then go from there, from that pot of money, if you will, that they will be able to make those requests, along with certain criteria that should be met in order to be approved. That they won't be approved, subjectively, if you will.
Senators, I think Singleton's next, and we'll go to Senator Smith.
A couple of things.
Okay.
Number one, in the ATN fund, the Advanced Technology Fund is now seem to be going away as we know it.
No.
Okay.
No, we still have it.
Still have it.
Right.
So what about those agencies that was being funded under the I know there's a group called Ed Farm that was in there that had been funded for the last 3 years.
They're in the budget.
They're in the budget.
Yes.
I didn't see them in it. Okay. All right. Secondly, could you just, maybe I'm missing something. What are we doing in this supplement or in this budget to address failing schools in this state? Just directly. Say that we have a program for that.
Program for failing schools.
Failing schools in the state. How do we address that?
We had
that's the number one thing we need to be talking about.
We had the line item that we discussed earlier. I think it's $10 million for the underperforming schools.
I see that.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, there are a lot of other resources that come to bear.
Yeah, but when I look at $100 million over here for prison education, I'm not really interested in education.
That's bricks and mortar.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but versus these babies that are here, savings center. I'm not interested in giving $15 million, but I'm not against that project. You see what I'm saying? Versus something particularly talking about how do we deal with it? Because when I look at failing schools and I follow the poverty trends in this state, all our failing schools follow right into the poverty trend, where there are poor schools, teachers are not being recruited. So how are we addressing that to make sure that Alabama, because these are the schools that are keeping us at the bottom. So how are we doing this to try to help our state move forward in being able to address those issues in education?
Yeah, I would say that with the...
I sent you a plan.
With the Literacy Act and the Numeracy Act, we're making progress because we're identifying those schools that are falling behind, and we're going to move the ball that way. And that number, that appropriation builds each and every year. It's growing, and that's one reason we need the savings account to go to if we got a flat revenue year.
It seems to me...
Maybe I'm not asking the right question.
Senator Smitherman.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick comment on what Senator Figures was saying. I think in all my right mind, my personal, just only me personal, I'm not really worried. I'm not really worried about the fairness from the Lieutenant Governor's office. What I'm worried about is that when the criteria is established, that's what's necessary for the application to get those funds. That by the time the communication end gets up by midway of the state, all the application will be in ahead of them. We'll have to get at the back of the line based on the date of applications. And as such, we may not have a chance to get access to these funds. And I'm going to say this to you. If Senator Elliott was in here, I think he would be smiling and laughing. You remember that we had the little projects on the roofs of the houses down there with the tornado starting out of Mobile, that area, you remember? It's supposed to be a statewide project. And first time I asked him, sitting right up here, the man said, we already got an application full, and they ain't even made it out of Mobile. because everybody down there knew the minute it hit, and I'm not faulting them, but when it hit, they were able to throw them applications in. That's my concern, is that, so I would hope consideration to be given for some language in there to say, and not just there, but in many of them that I've been seeing in here, the language says first, all 140 of us will get notice and copies of the requirement to apply for the money. Before any movement, we get that. Then whatever the starting date is enough, if it ain't but 2 weeks, to give us a chance in our districts to then put that word out there. Now, if somebody tearing and don't do what they're supposed to do, that's their problem after we get information to them. But I think that that's important because it right now is whoever's the closest and can get their hand on the information to get out there first. And I'm even with the state board. I think with the state board and these superintendents, that money we give over there for these schools, the same thing is happening. They already got folks in their ear, which I'm not faulting nobody, but they got folks in the ear telling them, you know, we need to finish this school, that school. Well, I can just give you a clear example. I just thank to God I got the chairman right here, but you know, if go to both of y'all, I got a juvenile facility up there in Birmingham that we are in the process of trying to get the building to have a one central place for all these juveniles. Because, you know, what's happening, we getting so many kids. Now, we in the city, y'all. We getting plenty of them. We running over, you know. And so that's I'm concerned about the Arbor money. You remember that? It was $55 million set up for all these kind of things like that. I ain't got directives yet now how to access that Arbor money. And the first thing I'm gonna be told when we go over there, oh yeah, we'll run out because we got projects ahead of you. And I asked about that before we even passed the Arbor bill. So I'm just saying, in all these monies, we need to have a system set up that we, all of us, 140 of us, we get the dibs first before anything is applied or accepted an application or anything, so that we can, because that's what Senator Figure saying in essence. She just took the shortcut way of saying, let's just split this money up among all of us and we don't have that problem. But you see what I'm getting at. I'll give tourism credit. They set up a great program. Them little grants we get in tourism, that's what they did. They said, here's X amount of money. You got to do it by this criteria, and then you get 10 up. You know what I mean? So it's up to, they give you able to 30. You know, so if you don't do what you're supposed to do, that's different. But at least we know ahead of time. So I'm just asking, I want some language in there, because it's the last thing I'm gonna say is this, because I know we got to get out of here. Is that it's nice when you got the right person in position. I even say about y'all, you know, it's nice that, but somebody come along after y'all, we got to rely on the goodness of their heart instead of the rules, and they may not have no good heart.
I would see this as a one-time, unless we have this phenomenon again and there's a comfort level among the membership, all 140 of us, to do this again. You expressed a concern that I heard regarding the ARPA money, and so this was a concept that we thought, well, we know where the governor's office is, the lieutenant governor's office. We know how to get in touch with him, both senators and representatives, and he is a member of the executive branch. So that would certainly give us more input. But again, the rules are being made. I hear you on the dates. I think, you know, I'd have to talk to Mr. Fulford, but I would, off the top of my head, think it might be acceptable to put a date certain, like the program would, you know, all applications may need to be in by August 31st or when, you know, whenever. But that so we all know the date going in. So I'll leave that to the governor's office, but let's talk about it, and we'll figure out a good system. Senator Melson. All right. We got a substitute. He's moved and seconded by Senator Roberts, Senator Hatcher.
Was I moving? Question for consideration: if we would be able to include pre-K facilities in this. I see it's in K through 12. but the very number you gave is one that would, fit perfectly within the model for pre-K. I'm sorry, I'm trying to use my Isaac Hayes voice here. And the other consideration I think you may have just responded to when you said that this is considered to be a one-time funding, but
Yeah.
is there some, even with this, will there be some sort of mechanism in place in terms of the Lieutenant Governor's office looking at how, I guess it's what Senator Smitherman is saying, how those funds will be dispensed and what would be the consideration for the grant?
We're losing members.
Don't go.
What? Say one more time, Senator.
It was really kind of piggybacking off what Senator Smitherman said in terms of how that process will be.
Yeah, they're going to have to lay it out. And let me tell you, folks, the records all be public record, transparent, and it'll be open. And so, and he knows, the office knows that. I've talked to him, and then whatever decisions are made, they'll have to say why this one was meritorious and this one was not.
And then finally, I just wanted to also follow up on that, the $10 million figure, because is that for all the schools that are considered?
Again, you got to consider all the other dollars that are coming. What about at-risk money? There's probably $30-40 million in at-risk money. I mean, they're coming from all different angles as far as.
There's one line item that's the $10 million.
The one line is underperforming schools.
Yeah.
Sure.
May I have a discussion? Thank you,
on.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on.
Line items that you were talking about for the grant process, it says capital K through 12 and also for deferred maintenance or technology needs. Would you be willing to look at a friendly amendment with you and I on that together on the floor if it parallels education for like a library or ag education or something like that?
That should qualify. It's in the bill. All right, Senator Sessions.
Mr. Chairman, I know we got to get to the actual bill itself, but I do agree with Senator Figures and Senator Smitherman. We want to make sure, and I think every senator sitting in here wants to make sure this was equitable across the board to all districts in the state and all children in the state. So I just want to put my 2 cents in on that and want to see the Lieutenant Governor's office do this in a proper and equitable manner. So thank you, Senator Figures.
Mr. Chairman, I will be getting an amendment together talking about that per capita amount and with the fixed date to, put in your applications for the grants for that amount of money, and any money that's not, asked for by a certain period, I think it should be released, and then it could go wherever.
Okay. All right,
I'm just going to tell you that once you get through with this hard work you're doing now, we will have a few weeks of a little time left. We need to do something different about what defines a failing school in the last 6%. Last 6% could be scoring 875.
Or 80.
Or 80, but 86%. We need a standard to say I just picked this out, if you don't get up to 70, then you're failing school. It's not based on whether somebody else gets to 72 and I'm at 70, and so that throws me as a failing school. If you truly fail by the standards, that's whether it's 70, 65, 85, whatever that is, if you fail by those standards, then we got to approach you as a failing school. Right now, it's a moving target. Yep. It's just if the people above you do better than they did last year, and you do as good as them, and they were passing school, you're a failing school, because you're still in the 6%. So we got to tackle that somewhere along the line this year. I hate the policy chair has gone, but we got to, y'all.
And that 70% is pretty much where you.
Okay, we need to move. We're losing my quorum, so let's move along. Community service grants. I'm on line 399. You see an increase there. The Senator Wagner bill. I'm on line 402. That's the Senator Wagner and Senator Smitherman bill. Historic grants, AIDB. The savings account is there at line 411, 413. Archives, they've got a new museum going over there. And then Senator Singleton there at the last section, 42, is what we discussed earlier.
So what number is it?
Line, section 42.
Section 42.
So we got a motion and a second on the substitute. Is there objection? Use your previous roll. All right, seeing none, 16 ayes, 0 nays. It's been adopted. We're on the bill. Is there a motion? Senator Gudger.
Second.
Senator Smitherman. Any discussion? Previous roll, 16 ayes, 0 nays. Clerk, call the next bill.
Senate Bill 269 by Senator Orr.
All right, this is the framework for the program we just talked about. There's
So move.
Senator Smitherman moves. Is there a second? Senator Gudger seconds. Any objection to use the previous roll? Hearing none, 16 ayes, 0 nays. The bill is given favorable report. We are adjourned. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for everything, both chairmans.